Hello everyone, it's me, XDayfell, and welcome back to another deltarune theory. Now, today I'll be talking about the very controversial, the very, theory that's like up in the air and people talk about it a lot of Des and Karen Knight. There's a reason why I decided to not make this video for a while because obviously I was going to make this later on after I got some experience. But now let's get into it. So I'll be talking about each theory separately and then give my thoughts on which seems to be the more lore relevant and possible theory. So basically, I'll be talking about Carol and Death Knight today. Of which theory do we think is like the theory of who is the knight in Deltarune? So obviously we have Carol Knight, evidences, lore relevancy, and how it can impact the story. And then we have Death Knight, the same thing always. Evidences, lore relevancy, and how it can impact the story. So yeah, we have Carol and Death Knight here, and I'll be talking about these two deers, about which one might be the knight. Obviously, it maybe let's do a match system of like which has the more evidence and lore relevancy, but we'll see. So first of all, case one, Carol Knight. Obviously, we have evidences. First, we know that the Roaring Knight uses a sword as a weapon, and it has antlers. So it's definitely a all holiday. Obviously, it's a holiday because it has antlers. If we can, let me go over there. Yeah, we can see here. It has antlers here, obviously. So yeah, we can see that antlers obviously, and it has a weapon. We know that. As you can see in the picture, Carol has a sword in her room and her kitchen. This can prove how the knight uses a sword and is therefore Carol. As you can see in her room, we can see this is the Carol's room. If you don't put Asgore, we can see it's a katana, and we can also see in the kitchen there's also a sword in the above the counter. So yeah, we have two swords, and the knight obviously summons a sword when you're fighting the knight. So there's that. Moreover, the overseer is named Black Knife, hinting to the knight's weapon's importance. Obviously, the overseer is named Black Knife. However, the secret boss overseers are named after the weapons. So like Hammer of Justice, Big Shot. Yeah. So I mean, maybe this is up in the air, but still, it counts. Secondly, Chris has known connections and is working with Carol, as seen in the Light Chapter 4 Light World segment. You can also see Chris working with the Knight, giving it hints to help her or it win or escape against the Fun Gang. Moreover, Chris might have been the one to knock Susie and Ralston unconscious, as the slash came from behind, and the Roaring Knight was at the front. So obviously, we know that Chris is working with Carol, and obviously, he was also working with the knight. We can see in one of his dialogues, if you know hit the knight, he says about coughing. That's his like sign of giving hints, and then the knight like slowly tilts his head. And right after that dialogue, the fight ends. Obviously, the fight comes into its final phase, and then we also have Chris maybe working with knight and then trying to help with escape or win against the fun gang. Moreover, Chris might have been the one to knock out Susie and Ralsei. Obviously, the slash came from behind. We can see here, slash came from behind, and the knight was at the front. Unless if knight has omnipotent powers, I mean, it already has some, but still, there's no way the knight could have hit them from behind. So obviously, Chris was the one who hit them from the behind. So we obviously know that. Obviously, that's the first fact. Obviously, and Chris would probably do that to help the knight escape or take Toriel. But yeah. Also, it's a sword slash as well. Now, lore relevancy of Carol is the knight. There are many reasons for Carol to be a knight in game. First of all, she might be creating dark fountains or allying with Chris to find Des, who may or may not be trapped in the game code. Obviously, Des is trapped in the game code. Probably may or may not be Des. We don't know yet, obviously. So yeah, if not, then it's up to debate what her motives are as the knight. Could be to cause the roaring or trying to find WD Winggaster. So it could just be trying to cause a roaring or trying to follow a prophecy to fight Winggaster. I can't say much on this. Maybe we'll see. and the first reason gives a good reason for Carol to be the knight. Therefore, it can happen in game. Now, how will it impact the story? Obviously, Carol and Knight will allow us to know what the motives are of Carol and Chris alliance with each other. We will definitely find out about why Chris and Kara and Chris ally with each other. It will reveal about what happened to Des and how to potentially find her. And with this course of events, the roaring will surely happen, and Chris might betray the fun gang. Obviously, we know that Chris might betray the fun gang. Obviously, and it will reveal about what happened to Des and how to potentially find her. Obviously, we might know that what happened to Des and how we can find her. And with this, and then we might also see the roaring happen as well. And Chris might betray the fun gang as well. Now, case two, Des Knight. Obviously, we have evidences. First, we can see the evidences that first we can see the knight summon their sword, which looks like a bat at first, or that they hold it like a bat. And we know from Noel dialogue that Des used to use a bat, often to protect Noel as a weapon. Des is also referenced in a razor bat oversea in deltarune. So obviously we know that Des is also referenced in a razor bat oversea as well. Obviously they obviously in the song Razor Bat, it's clearly mentioning Des about her interest in like music and such, probably from Tenna because Tenna talked about Des lacking music obviously, and then we can see the night summon the soul like a bat, which is reference to Des. Also, we can small detail, but we can also see the knight that the Des is also right-handed, and the knight is also right-handed. We can obviously see that that the knight over here as well. We can see that it's right-handed, and we can see from Des's computer that she's also right-handed. Obviously, we can see here that Des is a right-handed computer mouse, and then we can also see Des obviously having holding a sword that like in the from other hand. Also, we can see moreover Black Knife has the Lost Girl motif, but in reverse, which is associated with this. Obviously, we know that the Black Knife has a Lost Girl motif, and but in reverse, it's I'm pretty sure it's decoded somewhere. I saw a video about it, but yeah, we know that it's there, but along with that, so that we know that yeah, there it is probably there's probably has a lost girl motif in reverse. That Black Knife has a lot more lost girl motif, and it's obviously with related to this obviously. Secondly, we don't know the knight is also strong. We don't know how the knight is so strong and is not similar to a lightner at all, as no lightners look similar to the knight. Obviously, this could be with how the knight has obviously absorbed a lot of darkness, maybe either being stuck in the dark for so long, and this may have given it titan-like powers and made it very strong, and that's how. And also, this, as you can see here, this being the knight could explain this as she is apparently stuck in the dark, and maybe this gave her a lot of power at the cost of not being able to go to the light world. Obviously, this being the knight could explain how the knight is so strong. And in the dark world, they can literally summon swords out of thin air, so that could explain why they're very strong and have a lot of power at the cost of not being able to go to the light world, obviously. However, that point is unputable as we have seen the night in the light world when it captured Undyne. Another evidence: when Carol made Noelle go to the kitchen to talk with her, she couldn't have made the church Dark Mountain during that time. Obviously, we know that. Also, we know that we have seen the night in the dark, night in the dark world, light world. Obviously, it was grabbing Undyne and just made her go with it. Obviously, so yeah, we have seen that. There's another evidence. When Carol made Noelle go to the kitchen to talk with her, she couldn't have made the church dark fountain during that time. So obviously, we after another evidence of for Death Night is that maybe Carol, whenever she talks to Noelle after the whole holiday house live segment, that she couldn't have gone to the church dark world obviously during that time. So that's another evidence we can see here obviously that like she could have not gone to the church dark world during that time and made the dark fountain for in the church. So yeah, but she could have also made it beforehand or when Susie and Chris were at the diner after the holiday household. So obviously she could have gone after the holiday household, and that she could have also gone to the holiday household. Uh, Sorry, no, she could have gone to the church Darkwell after, whenever Chris and Susie were at the diner. So obviously lower relevancy. This being trapped in the dark world and this led to her getting mutated into the night and getting similar powers like that of the Titans. So obviously that's why the Knight might be so strong because they have Titan powers, because they were in the Dark World for so long. She might be trying to follow the prophecy and maybe cause a wrong in the end with an ulterior motive in mind. Obviously, she's following the prophecy and making and trying to cause a wrong with an ulterior motive. Maybe that something might happen. Obviously, this also means that the person in the code might also be someone who else who this also means that the person in the code might be someone else who is not this. So maybe the person who's stuck in the code itself, obviously we've seen that, is probably not this. That obviously, this can't be in the code and also be the Knight at the same time. Now, how will it impact the theory? Impact the story. This will bring a new twist into the already established Carol and Chris alliance, as the Knight is clearly allied with Chris and probably Carol as well. Obviously, the Knight is allied with Chris and Carol if Chris is allied with the Knight. So yeah, we'll find out about what that is about, and we also find out which side Gaston, the Triple Alliance of Chris, Carol, and Des are at. Like which, like what are their motives? Like what will the Carol and Chris Knight, Carol, Chris, Des Knight trio will do? What will they do for the story? What will they do in general? We will find that out if Des is the Knight. But but the same thing goes for Carol Knight. But yeah, we see. Now, which theory do I believe might be true? Okay. Now, this might cause a lot of problem. Obviously I have my own opinions about it, but yes, I'll say which theory I think is the true one. Carol Knight. I believe that Carol is the Knight and not Des, and here's why. Carol Knight might have less evidences, but it has more lore relevancy and clear indications as well with the counterpoints against Des Knight. This is why I believe Carol is the Knight and not Des. Obviously, we have seen Carol. Obviously, if you go back here, Caroline has Des Knight has some clear evidences, but Caroline also refutes this, Des, like how as we can see that that this might only be not might stuck in the dark, but the Knight can also go out in the light world. And obviously, if Des was stuck in the dark the Roaring Knight, and if she had a mutation of the Roaring Knight, she could have not gone to the light world. So yeah, she can't go to Des can't go to the light world if she's the Knight. Obviously, so yeah, and also there's a lot more points. Carol Knight has obviously the ulterior motive of like how Karen might be trying to find Des and trying to save her. So I like to think that Carol Knight has more evidence, has less evidences, but it can make more sense in the story. But that doesn't mean that Des Knight is fake. I think both theories have their own pros and cons. I'll look into this later. Okay. So yeah, well, this is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed my Carol and Des Knight theory. I had it in the back of my mind. I wanted to discuss about it eventually. I wanted to talk about it. Obviously, no hit to Death Knight theory. Both theories have their pros and cons, but in my opinion, Carol Knight might be true. Anyways, I hope you guys have a good night day. Goodbye. So yeah, obviously, no hit to Death Knight theories or Carol Knight theories. Obviously, both theories have their pros and cons, but I like to think Carol Knight might be true. So everyone, have a nice day. Goodbye.